Hey guys, what's up? Matt here. It's been a little while since I've made a video. Apologies for that. I was out and about traveling, spent some time in the US and also in Bali. And the whole while I was traveling, I was actually working. I'll talk about my mobile working setup probably in another video, but what I want to show you is a few ways that I use Procreate for the iPad Pro. So I'm working on the large iPad Pro. I've had it for about a year and a half now, and this is what I use to work remotely. It's not meant to be professional grade. I think you can buy Procreate for like $5.99 or something like that in the Apple Store. And then I use the Apple Pencil. What I usually do is wrap an elastic around it because I hate the slick kind of fancy Apple kind of plastic. What I do want to do is show you how, or at least a few ways how I finish pieces of artwork in Procreate. Again, tools are tools. You can really use anything. I, for whatever reason, decided to use the iPad as my professional unit, and I'm still currently working on it professionally if I ever leave the house. Otherwise I use my Cintiq. This is my home setup. I use the iMac 27-inch and it's fantastic, hooked up to the 21UX Cintiq that I've had for about a decade or a little less than that. So when I travel though, I use this, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just whatever you can create art on, you should create art on. So what I am going to do though, I'm going to show you 3 ways that you can kind of polish your work, finish it up using just stock brushes in Procreate. I'm noticing a lot more people are using this program. It's becoming a better program. The updates are fantastic. So I think it's time to start sharing some of what I know about Procreate and how I use it professionally. So Procreate is actually an incredibly powerful program, and it keeps getting better with all the updates. I'm able to work. This is all the stuff I've done with Procreate. And you can sort your work by, in folders and stuff like that. It's fantastic, but let's get into it. So for this first drawing example, I'm using hard edged lines. I've already done the sketch based on a photo reference, and then I use the inking brush that has a little bit of texture to it and a little bit of pressure sensitivity, and I go over all of my sketchy lines and really clean this thing up. This isn't how I always work. I'm not always this clean, but for this example, I'm working extra clean. So it gives me a solid outline to go in and then just kind of basically paint in all of the major forms. And once I do that with a base color, it could be any color, I lock that layer and I adjust it to whatever color I want it to be, and then I start going in and adding a simple shading. For this one I want to keep it cartoony, so I'm not going to highly render anything because those outlines will still be remain visible. So I'm just using a little bit of airbrush and a little bit of painterly brushes for a few shadows, but ultimately I'm keeping it relatively simple, and I'm going to do this for the entire body. Finally adding the hair on a completely separate layer so it doesn't affect the skin tones I've already chose. A few highlights. Again, I'm working off of a reference image that I have open on a computer next to my iPad, and it's pretty basic from this point on. Once I'm happy with the level of finish throughout all of the painting, that the forms are working, the next step I'm gonna do is actually go in and lock the transparency of the pixels for the line work, and I'm gonna paint those up to kind of just match the color of the skin a little bit, but still pop off, and that kind of ties the whole image together in a really nice way and gives you a really great professional level of finish. So for this second demonstration, I'm going to use only the 6B pencil. It's a nice soft lead, and I'm gonna not go over it with a cleaner line. So whatever I draw here is going to be final. So you'll see I spend a little bit more time on that sketch, making sure that the proportions are right and that it really does the reference photo justice. I go back in, erase out a few areas, but I leave a few errant lines because I want it to have this kind of homemade, handmade sketch feel to it. Once that's finished, I go paint under this layer with some textured brushes. I'm not just flood filling it and locking those transparencies. I want this to be slightly painterly. And so in doing so, I first sketch with the pencil, you know, getting a little bit of a skin tone down, and then decide to go in with some different brushes and smooth out a few things, add a few shadows, and when I'm happy with those shadows, at that point, then I lock the pencil line layer and just go in for a final touch and paint some of those the pencil lines to match the skin tone and the hair so that it doesn't pop, and it gives it this really light and airy feel to the whole sketch. And so slightly different technique from the first one, but still appealing and still polished enough to hand off as like a final drawing. So for example number 3, I've gone ahead and skipped you the struggle that was the sketch here, and I wasn't sure how I was going to finish this piece, and so I start without knowing what I'm going to do, and I'm using textured brushes, I'm using the pencils, and I'm basically just trying to build up some volume with every kind of brush that I have in Procreate. I want to add texture because I assume that I'm not going to leave the line work in place. It's just not holding up strong enough that I want it visible. So at this point I've already colored the line work, and I'm basically getting ready to paint that line work out here and there. Like, I don't want it to be seen. So I've gotten it close to the color of whatever the form is. And here you can see I'm going in and adding that highlight side, and I'm gonna start painting away some of those edges. You can see that I've airbrushed outside of her leg a little bit. I haven't locked transparencies on her entire body. I'm gonna let it be painterly. I'm just at this point experimenting with how I'm gonna make this particular drawing come together in the end, because it's clear I'm not quite sure. So I do what I know best, and that is to actually just start rendering volume more and more slowly. So you can see I've gotten into some of the nooks and crannies with some really dark colors, and at this point I've probably switched brushes many times. It's all in the hopes of getting something that looks polished and finished and like I didn't actually struggle. So I've probably crushed a lot of my layers down to one individual one at this point, and so that I can paint more fluidly and I don't have to worry about those layers. So I'm airbrushing over some of the textured brushes, and all of this is going to create this really unique kind of painterly look where things kind of blend in together a little bit. Some of the colors bleed from one material to the next, and that just creates interest. So all of this is done in the name of trying to get a complete drawing that looks decent, and use whatever tools you have in your toolkit, and that's what I'm doing here. So I'm just attempting to use everything I know. That's all I've got for you guys today. Hope you found it useful. Hopefully maybe you're inspired to pick up an iPad and Procreate and the Apple Pencil and give it a go and see what you can create, whether that's professionally or just recreationally. And now you're armed with some new tools for how to really polish off your work. So until next time, guys, live life, draw.